What's up, guys? We're showing you the V3 Wisefab front rack conversion. We start off obviously by taking off the V2, and here's the V3 kit, and this is a video that's mainly going to be about making the subframe and fitting the rack to the subframe. So you take all the templates out, super easy in the instructions. You overlay them on the subframe and you draw the outlines. It's actually quite simple to outdraw them, and even if you don't have the template for the small cuts, they'll be really clear once you're installing the pieces that make up for the rack conversion. I like to drill holes over there, little pilot holes, because then it's just going to be a little easier if you use a hole saw or wedge-shaped drill. So that way it's a lot easier to use the angle grinder. So what we usually do, we just take a drill like this and we drill out those holes in those areas. Sometimes I'll use a hole saw, but it's a little bit more difficult with the hole saw to get to the correct size because you have only one shot for it. But that's basically how it ends up. And then with the angle grinder, you start making cuts, and it's nice to have like older blades because you want to use like a different depth. And if you have like a brand new blade, the diameter may be a little bit too big, so you want to run like a couple waist old blades that you put on, or cutter discs that you put on the angle grinder, so you can make those smaller cuts. If you overdo it a little bit, that's not so bad because you can just weld that shut later. But basically it's just a whole bunch of like little pie cuts until you end up with the whole piece out. You could obviously also use a plasma cutter. This little piece needs to come out on both sides, as you can see over here. I also use a hex saw over there, or sawzall, however you guys want to call it. Some of his stuff is double layer, so you kind of got to mess with it. It's not super easy to make like 100% tutorial on it. You'll see it when you're doing it. I like to make like a really minimal cut to start with, so I can really check out where I have to be. And there, if you freeze this frame, you can kind of see how far I cut it. So I really like having little tools like this, and you guys will have the old rack position over there, so you can kind of like mimic where I'm going with this. As you can see, yeah, you cut through both layers, like part of the engine mount and the subframe that's under it, and that's basically the measurements that you take from there. Then what I usually do is I put the piece on there, and I see like with the banjo bolts, like how much clearance do I need. Like you can run different adapters on the rack. In my case, I wanted to run the banjo bolts, so I wanted to clearance a little bit more. It's nice that the Wisefab kit has excess material, so you can choose yourself how much of the kit you actually want to use. If you want to trim it down a little bit, even trim down pretty far, it's still very, very beefy. There, I just mark out where I want to have a little more clearance for those little holes over there, and as you can see, it's already starting to line up. You cut it just like that, right where you made that mark. Just put the piece back and forth on it a couple times, and it becomes really clear where you need to clearance it a little bit. Like I said, even if you wouldn't use the little templates, this is kind of like self-explanatory. And then you end up with the Wisefab weld piece like this, and it clears everywhere, and it sits really nice on the original Nissan subframe. I marked over there where I want to cut out a little bit more of the material, so the rack will go in with the banjos and everything on it. Obviously that's your own choice. These subframes are a little bit different. If you grab like 10 S chassis subframes, even 10 S14 subframes are going to have small differences, so just test fit that. That's the piece that I'm going to cut out extra, and you guys can see over here how much that basically is, how much extra we're cutting out compared to the instructions. And like I said, it's basically just for the rack to go in a little easier with the banjos or whatever fitting you have on there attached already. Also on the rack itself, I grind off like that little thing that's over there just to make the rack go in a little easier. Just clears right off. And now it's like time to test fit and put the rack in there. As you can see, I have the banjo in there, and it goes straight through over there with that little extra clearancing. So for the first fit, you can see there on the left of the video, those little holes are lining up. So that's working pretty well over here. You want to test fit it a couple times. Like if you have a car that's like full competition, it's kind of nice to be able to remove the rack quickly. And of course, it's nice to have the the banjos accessible, so if you're in a pinch. So now we have the rack going through the Wisefab piece easily with the banjo bolt installed, and we clearance the subframe over here in the same way as we clearance the Wisefab welding piece. You just put the welding piece over there, and that's where you cut it out. So you basically almost make that like a straight lower line over there. Over here I clearance it a little bit more as well. It's nice to have like a speed file, or however you want to call it, like a little bandsaw. On some of the S chassis you have to drill that hole to 14, and I go this far on the driver's side, 110 millimeter from that hole. So you guys can copy that if you want, and I kind of like make like an ovalized hole about 40 millimeter diameter on the left. So this completely clears the hard lines over there, and you won't have any trouble with that. You could run different hard lines. You could put like banjos and like soft like a -3 or something on there, but if you want to keep it completely stock, as you can see over there, we want to clearance a little bit at that half moon. It's about 62 millimeters and a 50 mil diameter, just to clear that bolt if you want to use that banjo fitting. That's kind of like the minimal. You maybe want to do like 60 millimeter. It will work with what I did, but it's just kind of close. Yeah, so as you can see, it all now fits into the subframe. You've got space to fit those banjo bolts right over there, and yeah, have no trouble with that. Weld it all the way around, as Wisefab provides like the hardware and all that stuff. And yeah, so it sits really nice and welds really nice. And I always weld like little nuts on the top, because you cannot really reach them with that piece on the front. It's not easy to reach those nuts. Some guys cut off the front piece. I like to keep it on in this case. So I just weld those nuts on there, and I use a V-head bolt to center them perfectly so it sits correctly in the hole. Then obviously, again, you really want to do this, check the clearance of the pickup tube, and we just run a really nice pan over there, a cast pan with an oil filter adapter. As you can see with the Siki headers, there's no other way because it cannot fit in the original oil cooler lines. Yeah, so that's basically how you clearance the subframe, and now you just install everything like a normal Wisefab kit. As you guys know, we have the best deals on parts worldwide, not only Wisefab, but also field suspension, ASD, quick changes, dog boxes, KBD, body kits, CNR, radiators, you name it, we got it. Drop us an email and we'll hook you up with the best pricing and of course the best support, because we've been doing this 21 years. Clients all over the world, we ship worldwide daily. Hit us up and we'll hook you up with, like I said, the best pricing and the best support you can imagine for your program.